From terrifying KKK threats in his youth to his shocking speech for Malcolm X, and living under the sharp surveillance of the FBI, Davis's life is full of untold stories that were seemingly kept from us. Why did his career remain in the shadows? Let's explore the life story of a black legend lost to Hollywood's history books. Ossie Davis was born Rayford Chapman Davis on December 18, 1917, in Cogdell, Georgia. Ossie was born into a modest family in rural Georgia, where he grew up surrounded by poverty and racial segregation. His father, Kintz, was a railway construction engineer, and his mom, Laura, was a housewife. The only reason we call him Ossie is because the clerk at the courthouse misheard his mother when she was trying to pronounce the initials of his name, R.C. Davis. The clerk heard Ossie Davis. Growing up in southern Georgia in the 1920s and 30s of America made life very difficult for his family. He was constantly affronted by racism as he grew up. In one incident, a group of KKK members threatened to shoot his father because they thought it wasn't possible for him to have an advanced qualification like railway engineer. They constantly warned his father with explicit threats that the work of the crew boss was white man's work. What mostly concerned them was not the work he was doing, but what he was being paid for it, which they thought was not an appropriate salary for a black man. His parents valued his education more than anything else. Like his father, having a qualification could be the only way to make sure he was guaranteed a future. The only thing that kept them from extreme poverty was the fact that his father had an engineering degree. So to appease them, he worked really hard in high school and attended Howard University. Throughout his time in college, his passion for acting grew, and he began to believe that he had a real shot in the industry and didn't want to waste his time in college. So he dropped out in 1939 to pursue his dream of becoming an actor after Alain Locke gave him a recommendation. That year, he made his acting debut with the Rose McClendon Players in Harlem. However, he put a pause on his career because he had to serve in the U.S. Army during World War II. When he returned, he attended the Columbia University of General Studies. Davis's career breakthrough came in the late 1930s in the vibrant theater scene of Harlem. He quickly gained recognition for his talent, landing roles in both stage productions and radio dramas. In 1946, Davis made his Broadway debut in the play Jeb. Even though this climb to success was interrupted by his military service, he still managed to quickly gain back his popularity when he got back. Throughout the 1950s and 1960s, he worked on most productions of his career, including Anna Lucasta, A Raisin in the Sun, and Pearly Victorious. He actually made his film debut alongside Sidney Poitier for the film No Way Out in 1950. Davis's ability to bring depth, humanity, and authenticity to his characters set him apart as one of the most respected actors of his generation. Celebrate the lives and achievements of the greatest black Hollywood stars by clicking the subscribe button and the notification bell. Even though his career was going relatively successfully, Ossie was still a black man in the industry, and that meant having to navigate a landscape that wanted to cast him in stereotypical roles for black men left, right, and center. He had to play stereotypical roles like Stepin Fiacit, a character billed as laziest man in the world. But Sidney Poitier was leading a change in the roles that black men played in the catering industry, and Ossie wanted to follow in his footsteps. The more honorable roles for black men came in the form of Pullman or butler characters. They weren't the center of the narrative in any way, but it was seen as respectable and dignified work to do as they were working as servers for upper-class America. In 1961, he wrote and acted in his own Broadway play Pearly Victorious, which was later adapted into the film Gone Are the Days. He starred alongside Ruby Dee and Alan Alda as Pearly Judson, the main character of the film. In the 70s, he mostly transitioned into a directorial role. He directed Cotton Comes to Harlem in 1970, a film touted as the first blaxploitation film in history, Black Girl in 1972, and Gordon's War in 1973. He was considered to be of the same caliber as Bill Cosby and Sidney Poitier because he managed to avoid playing stereotypical roles about black men and embed a certain sympathy and depth to every character he played, even when the writers intended for him to be the fool for comic relief. Davis's presence on the big screen brought a sense of dignity, intelligence, and gravitas to his roles. However, Ossie never quite achieved the same level of commercial success as the other black men on his level. His contributions to film and television helped to broaden the representation of African Americans in media and to challenge stereotypes and misconceptions about race and identity. But he was also an advocate in more practical ways. Ossie Davis's commitment to social justice and civil rights was a central theme throughout his life and career. He and Ruby Dee were actively involved in the struggle for racial equality. He was known to be close friends with icons like Malcolm X, Jesse Jackson, and Martin Luther King Jr. Because of his association, the FBI was keeping a close watch on him. The FBI was worried about radicals in the community and especially concerned about the influence that Ossie could have on them. When they lived in Mount Vernon, the FBI was secretly investigating his neighbors to try and collect information about him. The day after MLK was assassinated, he gave a eulogy at his funeral stating, "Did you ever talk to Brother Malcolm? Did you ever touch him or have him smile at you? Did you ever really listen to him? Did he ever do a mean thing? Was he ever himself associated with violence or any public disturbance? For if you did, you would know him. And if you knew him, you would know why we must honor him. Malcolm was our manhood, our living, black manhood." From participating in marches and protests to speaking out against injustice in their art and activism, Davis and Dee were tireless champions of equality and freedom. American Radio Works called them the first couple of the civil rights movement. Ossie's last roles were as Melvin Porter in The L Word and as Lorenzo in Proud. Both appearances were in 2004. He was nominated for a Golden Globe, a Primetime and a Daytime Emmy and a Tony Award. In 1984, he won the Adapted Drama Anthology Award from the Writers Guild of America Awards. On February 4, 2005, Davis was found dead in a Miami Beach hotel room. He was 87 years old. Ossie was known to have heart problems, although his official cause of death was not made public. His funeral was held at Harlem's Riverside Church, where thousands of people attended, filling the church and flowing into the street. A documentary about his life with Ruby named With Ossie and Ruby. In This Life Together was released a year later, and it won a Grammy Award in 2007 for Best Spoken Word. Ossie's legacy lives on not only through his body of work, but also through the lives he touched through the causes he stood for. His influence can be seen in the countless actors, writers, and activists who were inspired by his example and who continue to carry forward his vision of a more just, inclusive, and compassionate society. In 1948, Davis married fellow actress and activist Ruby Dee, and they became one of the most celebrated partnerships in the history of American entertainment. They met just 2 years prior when he starred in the play Jeb. At the time, Dee was just an understudy in the play. They got along well because they shared the same values and happened to have the same ambitions for the entertainment industry. They collaborated on a lot of projects together, and Ruby often acted as his right-hand lady when it came to his decision-making. They had a son, Guy Davis. Guy taught himself how to play guitar and, inspired by the Southern culture of his grandmother, started playing blues music. At first, he wanted to be an actor like his father, but when he found his passion in music, he started to flip-flop between these two careers before retiring as an actor and settling in as a blues musician. He appeared in the film Beat Street in 1984 and made a minor return to acting when he appeared in the 2018 movie Trench. For the most part, He makes upbeat jazz music that's been described as leaning more toward dance jazz, which originated from the kind of jazz that would be played in nightclubs in the South. They also had two daughters, Nora Davis and Hasna Muhammad. The two sisters keep their personal and work lives very private. However, Nora runs an account on Facebook where she constantly participates in events in the Black theater community and also runs a website dedicated to her parents' achievements in Black Hollywood. Ossie Davis has a net worth of around $2 million. After Ruby and Ossie got married, they bought a home in New Rochelle together. They lived there for over 4 decades before it went on the market in 2015. The New York home is built in a Mediterranean style with classical influence, an autumn palette, and nature all around. They originally bought the home for $130,000 in the 60s. When it went on the market, it had a value of $1.5 million, but just 9 years later, the home is now worth $2 million. The house is located at 44 Cortlandt Avenue, in a quiet neighborhood now majority occupied by the elderly. However, when Ruby passed away in 2014, mentioned earlier, her children decided it would be best to sell the home. The house was first built in 1910 and sits on 1.29 acres of lush grass, surrounded by woody autumn forestry. It has a large living room and a master bedroom with a balcony. The home also includes a library and multiple patios. Because the home was built so long ago, it's decorated with artistic Mediterranean etchings and wooden detail. Click on this next video to find out more about another Black Hollywood star who made Hollywood. Did you know this about Ossie Davis?